I don't have to tell you that divorce is painful, that it's isolating. What you might not realize, though, what a lot of people don't, is how many people actually get what you're going through, how many other people are going through something very, very similar right now. I'm a divorce coach for men, and so I get to do something you probably don't. I get to talk to a lot of people going through divorce who are experiencing the full range of emotional pain. And in the process of talking to and working with so many people, especially men, I also get to see some of the mistakes that people make, the mistakes that keep them stuck and don't allow them to move forward into a happy, healthy, rich life after divorce. These mistakes are kind of a big deal because time does not heal all wounds. I hear people say that often, but you guys, I have worked with men 6 years after divorce, 10 years, 12 years, who were still stuck, who were still depressed, who were still lonely, who were still hurting. Time does not magically fix these things. It's what you do with that time. It's how you learn to process and manage and move through what you're feeling that makes a difference. So today I'm going to share with you the number one top mistake that I see people, but men in particular, making when it comes to dealing with difficult emotions. The number one mistake I see is that they believe they have to get control over their emotions. They'll say things like, I have to stop being so angry, or I've got to get a handle on this anxiety. I just need to power through. I just need to power through this depression and suck it up and get through today and it'll be okay. And when I talk to them about their emotions, often I get fear in response. They say, I can't let myself feel it. Look at all the things I have to do. Look at the people I have to take care of. Look at the work I need to do. If I feel it, it's going to take over. It's going to overwhelm me. It's going to control me. I'm never going to escape it or stop feeling it. So they're in this constant battle, trying to control what they're feeling, trying to stop themselves from feeling it, or trying to dismiss it when it comes up. And I will tell you right now that is exhausting. It is exhausting. And when you're going through something like this, you don't have a lot of energy to spare. You're already exhausted. You're already stressed. And now you're in this constant internal battle with your emotions. People break down. And they start to lose that fight. In fact, you've probably had this experience, most of us have. What happens when you shut down anger? What happens when you suppress anxiety? Usually it works for a little bit, maybe a while if you're really tough about it. But what usually happens is that it comes up later. It comes up when we're tired, when we're stressed, and that's when we get explosive anger that just erupts that we feel like we can't control. And with anxiety, it's when we get panic attacks. It's when we've been suppressing and not feeling it, and then all of a sudden it just takes over our whole body and it feels like we're dying. And maybe the most tragic part about dealing with emotions this way, with trying to control them, is that especially for men, when they fail, when they have that outburst or that panic attack, or they get overwhelmed by emotion in another way, they blame themselves. They see themselves as being weak in that moment, not strong enough to handle what they're feeling. And now they're judging themselves, shaming themselves, hating themselves, on top of all the pain that they're already in. And it just goes on to create more emotional pain and distress. And it can lead to really tragic results, including suicide for a lot of men going through divorce. There's a quote I really like by Dr. Bessel Kolk. He is a Dutch psychiatrist who spent, I think, 30 or 40 years of his career studying PTSD. And he was one of the first people to really talk about the body and the way the body experiences emotion, the way the body experiences and holds on to trauma. And he was one of the first to do the research that showed us we need to work with the physical experience of emotions if we want to break free from them or move through them or actually heal the source of our pain. So Dr. Kolk says, no matter how much insight and understanding we develop, the rational brain is basically impotent to talk the emotional brain out of its own reality. And that's what you're doing when you try to control your emotions. You're trying to use the logical, rational brain to squash what's happening emotionally. And it works for a little while, but then it erupts, right? Because it hasn't actually fixed or solved or changed anything. You're just like holding back the tide. So what do we do instead? Well, if you're trying to control your emotions, you're really trying to fix the wrong problem. There's research by a woman named Jill Bolt Taylor. She is a scientist at Harvard who studies the human brain. And her studies suggest that most emotions, when they arise in our body, only last for about 90 seconds. And when I say they only last for 90 seconds, what I mean is that the emotion starts. You feel anxious, you feel angry. You feel afraid. What's happening is that your body is being flooded with peptides, neurotransmitters, hormones, right? Some of them we're familiar with: adrenaline, cortisol, endorphins. There's all this whole cocktail flooding through your body. That initial flood of internal chemicals lasts in your bloodstream, in your body, for about 90 seconds. That's all it takes for your body to start to clear away the initial flush, the physiologic flush of emotion. But most of us don't let that happen. Instead, we start feeding the feeling with our brain. We feel the anger and we start thinking angry thoughts. And we're like, oh my gosh, that bitch, how could she do this to me? And this isn't right. And I deserve better, and to our kids too. And now that story, those angry thoughts, are causing our body to continue releasing the peptides of anger. Right? And same with anxiety. We feel the flood of anxiety, and then we start going, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And how is this going to end up? And am I going to be alone forever? And I don't know if I can handle this. And all of those uncertain thoughts trigger the body and the brain to continue producing the peptides of anxiety. So instead of allowing the emotion to come up, arise, and clear, and then try to think logically, most of us either initially engage with the emotion or we fight it. And so we feel the flood of anxiety and we're like, no, I can't be getting anxious right now. I have to think clearly. I've got work to do. I can't be getting caught up in this. And now we've created that internal conflict. Right? So we're feeding the emotion by fighting it, or we're feeding the emotion by following the story it tells. If what Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor says is true, that most emotions come up and pass in about 90 seconds, well, then the emotion's not your problem. Because you can handle almost anything for 90 seconds. I bet you've handled some pretty nasty things for 90 seconds, including pretty intense physical pain at some point in your life. So the emotion's not the issue. The issue is our nervous system response to it. The issue is the story we tell when we feel the emotion. It's our feeding the emotion or our fighting it. Right? We tend to go into a fight or flight response in response to our own emotions because we don't want to be feeling it. And that's what happens when you try to control your emotions. Your brain's like, gotta control this, can't feel it. And now you've put yourself into fight mode, or you try to get away from it. You try to distract and numb and buffer. Now you're in flight mode. But what you're doing is you're escalating your nervous system into this activated state. That is ultimately the problem, not the emotion itself. So I'm going to share another quote from Dr. Bessel van Kolk. He says, neuroscience research shows that the only way we can change the way we feel is by becoming aware of our inner experience and learning to befriend what is going on inside ourselves. So he's really just talking about learning to notice what really happens in those 90 seconds of anger, anxiety, fear, elation, joy, excitement. What is your internal experience of emotion? Can you befriend that experience instead of fighting it? Because if you do, you'll stay calm. Right? You might be feeling anxious, you might be feeling angry, but you're not layering a fight or flight state on top of it. You're just witnessing, being open to having this emotional experience in your body. So if you would like some more concrete tools to actually do this, to stop trying to control your emotions, befriend them instead, and allow them to start passing through your body in those 90 seconds, then come with me into this next video, how to get through divorce emotionally. I made it specifically to address these cycles of emotions, especially the ones that men tend to experience during and after an unwanted divorce. And I give you some real concrete tools and exercises that you can use to start working with your emotions instead of fighting against them. So I'll see you in the next video.